Hi, Merchan. Thank you so much for coming on the Feel Good Social podcast. I'm so excited to bring you on the show, lady.
Hi, Kinsey. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to chat with you and share everything and just be here today. I really appreciate you having me.
Yes, I know this is going to be such a great conversation. And I already did introduce you just a little bit in the intro, but I'd love to hear from you. Who are you? What do you do? Who do you serve?
Perfect. Yeah. So my name's Hargrave. I am located in upstate New York and I run a company called High Vibe Cowork. It's a virtual community where I run masterminds and virtual co-working for women entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, or people building a passion project. I also have a podcast called High Vibe Table Talks where we chat about the roller coaster journey that is entrepreneurship and all about the messy middle because people a lot of times see like the shiny stuff on social media. And I like to dive into like the nitty gritty and the stuff that we all go through as we're building our lives.
Yes, we so align with that in this podcast. I cannot wait to hear what you have to say. But before we dive into all the things, I always kind of like to kick off the conversations by asking just how did you get started in your journey? What has this looked like for you?
Yeah, it's been, as I said, a roller coaster like it is for
Mm.
everybody. But I actually went to school for teaching. I got my physical education degree. And the last job that I applied for, because we had hit a recession and that it was hard to get a teaching job, very different than it is today. But I was one of 1,000 applicants for the position. I got down to the final three and didn't get the job and said, I need to pivot. I need to do something else. I need to take more control of what my future looks like. So I got a job in sales. I worked for a software company. We were very small. We just sold our first customer outside of New York State, and I worked for that company for a little over a decade. But I was making about 250 cold calls to car dealerships every single week. And so it's a very masculine, both like industry to be in and also energy to be in with cold calling. So craving more feminine energy in my life. And so I started to network locally, then just built a base of people and we started showing up together, talking about our lives and our businesses. And during COVID, needed accountability because as much as I don't like doing dishes or cold calling when you're stuck at home, I'm going to pick dishes every single time. So I was craving accountability. And so I kind of meshed both my teaching background, my coaching background, the sales that I had, accountability, my community. And that is what started High Vibe. I ran my first mastermind in the fall of 2020 and just have grown from there.
Wow, that is such a cool origin story that I've always wondered about people who have to do the cold calls. I never really associated it with masculine energy, but you're so right, especially for the car dealership
Yes.
situation and stuff. Oh man, and yeah, that does seem like such a stark difference now from what you do with high vibe and all that different stuff. I don't know, just out of curiosity, what are some major flips and switches that you've done when it comes to like masculine versus feminine energy?
Yeah, I think that being in the automotive industry, while it's a cool industry to be in, but it's a bit like dog eat dog type of world. And one of
Mm.
the first networking meetings that I ever went to, I'm in upstate New York in Rochester, and I went to a Rochester Women's Network meeting. And I sat down, and it was this big group of women who were there to support each other. And it
Mhm.
wasn't this uber competitive. If you get a customer, that means I have one less customer to go after. It
Mhm.
was very much like, how can I support you? How can I fix a problem that you're having? How can I connect you with someone that you're looking for? And I just felt such this like beautiful camaraderie among people who didn't know each other that well and were just out there in a very like heart-centered and giving type of atmosphere. And so I've really tried to draw in that type of energy to my groups while also balancing the idea of you have to take action. I don't know if you're familiar with Amanda Francis, but in it, she talks about bowing your head and moving your feet. And she uses some religious aspects in her business. I'm more of like a universal energy type of verbiage when I talk about the universe, but it's bow your head, trust in the universe, and take action because if you don't take action, you're never going to get to where you want to go. So it's finding that harmony between the masculine of support, community, trust in the universe, and taking action and seeing where that takes you.
Yeah. Oh, man. Oh, so interesting. I know. I love thinking about the difference between the masculine and the feminine, just in our society, our culture, and how that applies to our business and entrepreneurship, too. And it really is like, I think even just being aware and getting curious about these different things and questioning, like, what is going to work for us. It's so funny. I have been getting a little bit back into human design lately. Are you a
Mm.
human design girly at all?
Ish. I know a little bit to
I'm
make feel
very, yeah.
dangerous, but then it's one of those things where it's like, there's so much to
It's
even.
so much. I know. I'm trying to take it slow.
Yeah.
But it is funny. I'm the projector type. And that actually, according to this type and stuff, you're supposed to just show up and wait for the invitation, I guess is the thing. And that is just so much more feminine energy side of things. But like most of us, when I was just starting out in entrepreneurship, and a lot of the strategies we do still hear, and they work for some people, is the more masculine, insert yourself, do the things. And it's funny, I've been thinking a lot lately about the difference between masculine and feminine energy and like taking action, right?
Mhm.
Because I'm definitely an action taker, but like when it stops working for me is when I feel like I'm pushing, and especially
Mhm.
pushing myself maybe on others in that way. So I've been really more so just trying to be like, hello, I'm here. This is what I'm doing. Blah, blah, blah. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. Like when I was selling to car dealers, there was a small team of us and we all sold very differently. And so, my message to my audience is that you can sell authentically and organically to yourself. And it doesn't have to feel like pushing and friction and hard. It's never going to
Hmm.
feel comfortable because you're putting yourself out there and opening yourself up to rejection. And you can have conversations that are service based, heart focused, authentic, using your own words. And so it's finding that balance between those two.
Ooh, I love that we're taking the conversation here because exactly, yeah, there's just so many different ways that it is. It's finding out what feels most aligned to
Hmm.
you and stuff. So I have another slightly similar question ish, but I think it's just the way we've grown up, our culture, and especially when you're new to the entrepreneurship game, comparisonitis is real.
Yeah.
And I do know that feeling of, oh my gosh, when you first start out, especially, and I think because of all the masculine energy in entrepreneurship, it can feel hard. Overcome that competition over community and embrace collaboration or community over competition. Did you ever run into that? And do you have any like easy shifts we can make to like embrace collaboration more than competition?
Mm, that is a great question. And the first thing that comes to my mind when you ask that question is that I always say that should is a shame word. And so if the conversation you're having in your head is, I should do this, I should be here, I should have reached this level of success, or I should be showing up this way or in this number of times every week, we have to shift the word should to look internally of what feels aligned, what feels authentic to yourself. Because entrepreneurship is such, if you're not ready to do some inner introspective work, I don't know if you're ready for entrepreneurship. And I think that everybody who wants to be an entrepreneur can, but be prepared that you're going to have to look internally and be like, why? What is the friction here? And so, really just stepping back and bringing, one of the things that I love to do is having a North Star goal. And it really helps the like what I should be doing roll off my back easier, because I know if this is my North Star goal and I can use that as a filter of all the information that we take in on social media, in our network, things like that, it releases like, okay, that's their journey. That's what they need. Here is my journey. And this is what I feel called to do and is what's important to me.
Yes. Okay. We have to talk about the idea of a relaxed entrepreneur because I know that you have been somewhat, maybe recently, embracing this concept more. Tell us about this.
Yeah. So I first heard it on Nicola Jane Hobbs' Instagram. And I'm sure I'll send you the link for the post that where I read it, and I instantly like just started crying because I was like, the fact that it was even a possibility to be a relaxed woman was like such a foreign concept and felt
Mhm.
at that point when I was in sales, selling to car dealers, I was laid off in 2021. And so I started managing two Pilates studios, which in the idea of things sounded like a perfect fit for me. And then there was this showing up to 500 members who, if their card wasn't working, like it couldn't be, oh, I'll take care of that tomorrow. Like there was such an urgency and immediacy to everything. And after a little over a year, I was like, I can't operate on a level that's fair to myself, to my family, to my nervous system, where it's this needs to be fixed and needs to be fixed right now, and everything else has to go on the back burner. And so when I left the studio and decided to jump into my business full time, I decided to use that as a filter in which I say yes or no to things. Of course, I still like have deadlines. Like I work with a podcast producer and she has to have my stuff at a certain time so that she can do her work and get it produced in a timely fashion. So it's not that I have no deadlines and just do things when I feel like it. But if it's too much for my bandwidth or going to create too much urgency and really understanding what that looks like for me and my business, like I coach my daughter's lacrosse team and my husband also coaches. And over actually last week, we just got a puppy. And so I want the ability to build space into my calendar so that if something comes up for my daughter, there isn't this like overwhelming guilt of how am I going to get all of this done? And there's a lot of rest built into that. There's a lot of releasing of what I think entrepreneurship should look like. Or because others can't doesn't mean that I shouldn't. Just because others can't decide that they're going to take a walk around the neighborhood at 10 o'clock doesn't mean that I shouldn't. I have built this for myself and I should embrace all of the beautiful parts that I built into what I've created.
Yeah. Oh, I do love this concept. And oh my gosh, lady, I relate so much. It's so funny. My first client ever. I really truly adore this woman. She is so awesome. And she taught me a huge, huge lesson about boundaries because honestly,
Yeah.
she was paying me very, very well for my first ever content client. Pretty much still what I charge today, honestly. But at the same time, this was the first and really only client at this point because I learned my lesson hard that really did expect me to be like on demand, texting me at 10 p.m. saying this needs to be done immediately. And I went through that same thing where I was like, holy crap, this is not worth it. This was like a good amount of money every month, but allowing me to quit like my restaurant job and just different things like that. But I was like, wow, there is a price that like, that, like,
Yeah.
but there isn't really for that sort of thing. And so early on, definitely I've had to learn. And of course, you have to learn the lessons again and again.
Yeah.
But definitely I have taken on a similar mindset, especially with myself, right? Because I consider myself a client. And I honestly find myself sometimes being like, this has to be done immediately. I'm like, wait,
Yeah.
does it, Kins? Does it?
Right.
But then also with my other clients that I kind of work with for content and stuff, it's funny how at first I had only pushback really from that one client where the first client where our boundaries weren't set. And then I had
Mhm.
to set them and it was backtracking and she was like, "Ee," and there was a
Yeah.
little bit of tension there. But I'll say that she actually came back to me and
Mm.
at one point, like later, and was like, you really taught me about boundaries. Like, I just have to say, it was really frustrating when you were telling me that you couldn't do things for me within my timeline. She's like, but I actually learned from that. I was like, wow, that took a
Yeah.
lot for you to say that. Thank you. But it's one of those things too, where with all my other clients, because I've just started working with them with the expectations of just know that when I get your email, I'm getting to it. I will respond to you within, 48 hours. But like there's this level of trust there and this understanding of boundaries. It hasn't been an issue when I've like
Mhm.
been able to relax a little bit more in my business. Have you run into that at all?
Yeah, I think and when you were telling that story of your first client, how she came back to you, that feels like such a projector story of you projected back to her what you needed, and in the end, she was like, "Oh, I needed that too."
I never put that together, girl.
But yeah, I think it's the building the boundaries initially and expectations up front. Boundaries are there to protect yourself, not put demands on anybody else. There are a lot of people who they'll answer emails right away. But even when you and I were messaging back and forth, like our voice memos, you were very much like, whenever you get back to my email, that's fine, no rush. And like, I love surrounding myself with people who appreciate that and understand that life happens and your inbox doesn't have to be at zero every day. That's not a sign of success.
Totally. Oh my gosh, I love that you brought that up. That's actually coming up for me lately too, that it's so funny. Okay, yes, because I have embraced this lifestyle for myself within my business where I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna be one of those people who gets back to you. Like sometimes I will get back to you immediately if it's like the right time, and then sometimes it'll take me a day or two to get back to
Mhm.
you and whatever. It's just relax, like we're saying. I do try to also put that out into the world, like you just said. It's funny to me when people will be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I didn't respond to you." And like multiple emails back and forth, with potential podcast guests. She's like, "I can't believe it took me a week to get back to you." And I'm like, "Girl, no worries." Like take your time. So I just try to put that out there because also
Yeah.
I want to build friendships like that too. Exactly like
Yeah.
you're saying. It's like I want people to know that I'm not going to judge you for taking a while to get back to me. I respect and understand how much you have going on in your life right now, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And like, I am here and we're friends and like, let's make this casual and just have good vibes all around because I'm
Yeah.
not here to add stress to your life.
And one thing I started doing instead of apologizing if it does take me a week to get back,
Hmm.
I start off the email by saying, "Thank you for your patience." So, like, showing gratitude towards the fact that it did take me a
Hmm.
week instead of apologizing like I did something wrong.
Yes, just those little flips. This is why I love mindset stuff so much because it's just these little things that we can become aware of, and they might sound hokey to you at first, but just start implementing them, and then you start to believe them yourself. And
Mhm.
like, then like the world starts to interact with you in a different way, right? I feel
Yeah.
like it's similar with confidence stuff sometimes too. One of like the smallest confidence tricks that has been really helpful for me, and I share this with everyone who's, oh, how do you get confident? Here is one of those tiny little things you can do. Next time someone compliments you, be like, thank you.
That's a full sentence.
Genuinely, like,
Right.
thank you. Don't try to dismiss it. Don't try
Mhm.
to make up an excuse for why you are so awesome. Like no, just
Yeah.
like appreciate it. Thank you. Believe it within yourself and truly show gratitude to this person. At first, it feels weird. It feels awkward. You're like, oh, I'm like so into myself, and then you're like, yeah, like it's easy.
Right. Where does that stem from, do you think?
What part do you think?
The inability to accept a compliment.
Ooh, this is interesting. I think that probably just like ultimately as women, don't you think we were like raised to be humble? Our society wants to put us in the corner. We're here to take care of people, we're here to be humble, we're here to support others. And if you're loud, if you have opinions, if all these other things, then you're dangerous.
Mhm.
Like our society, our patriarchy and stuff. And so
Mhm.
I think that it's probably just integrated into us over time. It's just like things that like little things that your mom tells you or that your family tells you. Or
Yeah.
that not that they tell you, even that you see your parents doing, the
Mm.
women in your life are doing. My mom was one of those people, she would always make up an excuse like for her compliments and stuff. So you just like kind of start doing that over time and that just becomes integrated into you. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, part of why I ask is because I do have an 8-year-old daughter, and
Yeah.
so I really try to take all of the things that I'm deconstructing for myself,
Mhm.
people pleasing, not taking compliments, not resting, not having that relaxed pace, and how do I mirror that for her or take the little moments, the little conversations, the little things that are happening and make sure that I'm not constructing those for her as well. So it's just
Mhm.
taking as many teachable moments as I can, him really sitting back and go like, now knowing what I know, how would I have wanted to be parented differently? And how
Mhm.
can I parent differently to give our kids their own issues? Like therapy's never going to go away. But how
Mhm.
can I make sure it's not so monumental that body dysmorphia or becomes a 23-year-old that is constantly saying yes and gets burnout? So I just try to find as many teachable moments to create positive foundational pieces for her and her future.
Oh, yeah, I love that. I know I've been thinking about we're thinking about starting a family over here. I've been saying it to people because, like, I have to say things out loud and then I,
Yep.
like, start to believe them, but, like, but yeah, I know I've been thinking about that a lot lately too, and I think that honestly, like, modeling trying to be the best human you can be as,
Mhm.
like, the person in the world that you are, and, like, your kids just see that. I
Yeah.
will say, oh, this is so funny that these like themes come up. I interviewed someone yesterday who was chatting about she's a mompreneur and she helps mompreneurs and she like I was like goals. When I was interviewing her kids were like running in the background. So and I was like, "Tell me your secret." She's notepads. Tell them to write things down on a notepad when they
Oh,
need it. That's it. But I feel this too. She's like, "My kids are like my biggest cheerleaders. They see their mama working. They understand like the boundaries that I need to set with them and my work." And she's like, "They also know that if mom needs 2 hours to do work, then she needs 2 hours and she will be there in 2 hours to hang out with them." Like all this different. She's like, "My kids, honestly, it's just so great to be an entrepreneur and have them there cheerleading me and also have them seeing their mom being a badass and stuff." And I
yeah.
was like, I really feel that I grew up with entrepreneurial parents too. I actually interviewed my mom on the podcast and I didn't realize how much like them, her ability to like pivot and have multiple jobs throughout my life, her ability to be an entrepreneur and have this canoe and kayak business and stuff. And I think I didn't realize that I have like this internal belief that firstly, we're all going to be okay. I can quit school. I can switch my jobs. I can pivot my life. I'll be fine because like my mom did all
Yeah.
through my life and she's cool. And also just like understanding that the freedom to do what I want, that was something that I just believed. And it wasn't until I was an adult and had conversations with other people who have awesome parents, but who had parents that were in the same career their entire lives. And they were like,
Yeah.
it was a huge deal for me to take the leap and start my
Yeah.
business. And I was like, oh, that's not something that I even really realized, you know?
Yeah. I have a similar but different story as far
Uh
as
huh.
like my dad. He's now an entrepreneur, but he didn't become an entrepreneur until his late 40s, I think. So my childhood growing up, he was in corporate America. And
Mm
I'm the oldest of five. And so once there were three of us, my mom was a social worker, and so her income was more than our daycare bill. So at some point they had to my mom worked the
hmm.
C shift and so my dad would come home. Anyways, the what I took from that as I have been working through my stuff is that my dad made an income for our family and my mom made an impact on her the
Mm.
world that we lived in, and they were mutually exclusive. He couldn't make an income and an
Mm.
impact, and so that's something that I is really at the center of my business and what I also love to implore my community and my clients to do is you can make an income and you can make an impact. And I just think that it's corporate America isn't the only way to do that. Or because you are serving people doesn't mean that you should barely scrape by. Like you could have a beautiful life and support your family and do incredible service to others, your community, the world, and have amazing ripple effects.
Wow. Oh, I love this. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it's already been 30 freaking minutes. Where did the time go? But this conversation has been so wonderful, and I love chatting with you about all this. Can you please share with everyone how they can connect with you? If you have any free resources, we'd love to hear about them.
Yeah, sure. I love to show up. Actually, I've been showing up more on threads lately. So, threads, Instagram, at High Vibe Cowork. I'm also on LinkedIn, Mershawn, Hargrave, and I host free virtual co-working every Wednesday from noon to 2 EST. It's on Zoom. We come in, talk about what we want to tackle off our to-do list, and then I play music. Everybody just puts their head down and does their work. We have the chat open and then we come back, say how'd you do with your stuff. And so if you go to highvibecowork.com/virtual, you can sign up to join the virtual co-working.
Ooh, cool. I definitely need to check that out. Thank you so much, lady.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a really fun conversation and same. I can't believe it's been 30 minutes already.